On this video, I'm gonna show you how you can become a fighter pilot. What does it take and what's the process of becoming a fighter pilot? Hey, what's going on? I'm Bill Allen. I am a Navy pilot turned full-time real estate investor, and I flipped and wholesaled over 800 houses in the past few years, and I built this channel so you can think for yourself and figure out how you can do that same thing too. I just came back from an event recently. It was an event for young entrepreneurs. So there was ages like 8 and up there with their parents. It was an amazing event in Phoenix, and don't worry, if you're in our community, I will, in the next 12 months, I promise you, I'll be putting on an event for our young entrepreneurs about how to handle finances, money, and real estate. And I cannot wait. I got so pumped up and inspired by this event that I'm gonna put one on myself for our community and all of you. So I can't wait for that. Stay tuned. There will be more about that coming up. I'm gonna step aside from real estate for a second today on this video and talk about how to become a fighter pilot. At this event, I had a young guy, he was 17 years old actually, junior in high school, going into his senior year and said, hey, I wanna become a fighter pilot. How do I do that? And I thought this would be really cool to break down in a video on my channel here because it does tie into a lot of the things that I do and the way that I think and all that stuff. And also for those of you that are military out there or thinking about becoming military, I'd love for you to share this with your kids and show them and talk to them because there were a lot of things in this conversation that I had with them that I think are important, whether you're going into the military or you're in the military now, or you're starting your business. I run my business like a military squadron, like a pilot would, and the structure that we have is very similar. So I hope you guys enjoy this. The concept behind this is this guy was in high school and he wanted to become a fighter pilot. So I had to go through the whole process, and that's what I'm gonna go through here. When you're in high school and you're getting going, you've got to understand the first step is not becoming a fighter pilot. And this is the same in business. Your first step is not making $1 million. You have to come back and back that off and see all the different wickets that you have to jump through as you go. So the first step is actually just getting a slot at a military academy or ROTC, Reserve Officer Training Candidate. I don't know. I'll have to look it up. So an ROTC slot, or you're going to have to go to college, get a bachelor's degree, and then go through OCS, Officer Candidate School. So those are the only 3 ways that you're gonna become a pilot potentially, but you have to do that first. So then I went back and said, look, the first step really is to figure out what you're doing, your extracurriculars, what's competitive to get into the service academies, to get an ROTC scholarship, or to get accepted for Officer Candidate School. And really it's very heavily weighted on academics, as well as sports and extracurricular activities. And then also, like, one big thing for me was Eagle Scout. Like, I went through Boy Scouts and I want my kids to go through as well to get their Eagle Scout, because it's a big push when you come to fill out your resume, right? You're putting in your application. So some ways to do it, and I'm gonna talk about the Navy because that's what I know. So the Naval Academy, you can go to the Naval Academy, or you can get a Navy ROTC scholarship to college, or you could go to college and pick up the college program, which means you're doing ROTC for free, you're not getting a scholarship, and you're putting in the time hoping to pick up a scholarship or hoping to get a commission at the end of your college career. Or you can go all the way through college and then do OCS, Officer Candidate School. So the first step for an ROTC scholarship or the Naval Academy or any service academy is to get a nomination. You have to get a nomination from somebody like a congressman or a senator or the president, and they only have certain numbers. So what I told this young man is the first thing that you need to do is you need to go write letters and call and go to the offices and figure out how to get an appointment with a senator, a congressman, or anybody that has appointments to an academy or ROTC, depending on what you want to do. I did ROTC. I went to Georgia Tech. I got an ROTC scholarship, so I should know what it stands for. And I spent 5 years there wearing my uniform 2 days a week, drilling, going on summer tours. We had to do summers with the Navy. And then I eventually got commissioned. So step 1 is to get into one of those schools or into one of those programs. So you need to put in an application. So I said, get to work on filling out your application, figuring out what's required, what's going to be competitive, talk to a senator, talk to a congressman, talk to the president if you need to, and figure out how to get a nomination. So that's step 1. Then let's say you get into one of these service academies, Naval Academy, West Point, the Army version, the Air Force Academy, things like that. Let's say you get in there, or you do ROTC and you get a scholarship or an appointment there. Now, when you go there, the next step is just getting through those programs, right? They only have a certain number of pilot slots, and then they have a certain number of surface warfare spots and submarine spots and marine spots and Navy SEAL spots if you're Navy. So they have a certain number of spots. So you have to do well enough to get one of those spots. So what I did was I just focused on my academics. I focused on being a good student, focused on being a good reserve candidate. I focused on my ROTC training. If you're at the Naval Academy, you'll have to play some sports, right? So there's some requirements while you're there. And what you want to do is you want to do really well in that program so you get the option of what you pick. Because if you don't do well enough, then they're going to select for you. You're going to be stuck in that spot where you don't get the choice. The Navy's going to choose for you or the military's going to choose for you. So at that point, you want to do really well in school where you get really good grades. And I would recommend an engineer. Engineering gets weighted pretty high. Certain majors get weighed higher. Your grades get weighed higher. Extracurriculars get weighed higher. It's very much like an application that you would use to get into school to pick your next billet. So I ended up getting a pilot slot. I was lucky enough to get a pilot slot out of college. So that would be your next step if you're trying to become a fighter pilot, right? And so just like business, this relates so closely to business. You get through kind of like one thing, and then you have to jump into another to hit that end goal. If your end goal maybe is to make $1 million a year, you have to do that first house. You gotta buy that first house, and then you make some profit, and maybe you need to hire somebody, and you're starting to build out your team a little bit, because maybe just you alone can't do $1 million a year. And then you start building out your team. So this is like step 2. So step 1, service academy or ROTC, getting that nomination, doing the application, getting accepted. Step 2 is going to that school, doing really well to put you in a position of choice, okay? Step 3 now, let's say you get that pilot slot. Now you're gonna go down to Pensacola and you're gonna start your flight training. Flight training starts with school. You go to what's called API, Aviation Pre-Flight Indoctrination. You go down there, it's about 6 weeks long. When I was there was a pool, like a wading pool. So we just sat around. I bought a boat. I went out fishing and scuba diving every day. We checked in the morning. They said, hey, we're still alive. They said, all right, see you tomorrow. And we left and we went fishing. I'd say, hey, who wants to go fishing and scuba diving? We'd go out fishing and scuba diving every single day. And we would just keep our fingers crossed they wouldn't give us a job to do while we were there. So there was some ensigns, young junior officers that got called out. So every day they'd have a list of people like call out their names like, oh, you have a job for a week or you have a job for the next 2 months. And we would just show up, check in, and off we went fishing, repeat the next day. I never got a job. It was amazing for 6 months. Anyway, it's probably not going to be the case for you if they're not backed up like they were with me, but I went to API and you start taking classes like weather and aerodynamics and mathematics and things like that. And you start engineering, you learn kind of how the engines work, like gas turbine engines and jet engines and things like that. So you go through that, and then you also have to swim. So we had to swim a mile with our flight suit on. We had to tread water for like 10 minutes with all of our gear on, helmet, boots, gloves, all that stuff. We had to swim laps. We had to tread water. We had to do all this drown proofing and things like that to make sure that we could survive. We had to do the helo dunker. We had to run physical tests, all that kind of stuff. And you want to do really well on those things. You want to do really well so you can continue to move on. We had to learn parachute landing falls. We had to do all kind of survival training, things like that, and learn all that stuff in a school setting and then an application setting. So that was 6 weeks long. Towards the end of that, you get your flight suit for the first time. So before that, you're wearing your regular uniform, your khakis, but after that, you get your flight suit. And that was so special to me. So doing well in API, then you go to primary flight training. So primary flight training is where everybody starts in the Navy on the same airplane. So it was a T-34 Charlie when I was in. Now it's a T-6 Bravo. T-6 Bravo's 1,100 horsepower, amazing machine, glass cockpit, heads-up display. You wear a G-suit, oxygen mask, fully aerobatic, 7.5 Gs this thing can pull. It is an amazing machine. I was an instructor on it for many years. It is beautiful. I love it. The T-34 Charlie that I flew had half the horsepower, only 550 horsepower. Still aerodynamic. We could do a bunch of aerobatics and 4.5 Gs, but the T-6 is incredible. So you fly that next. You go there, you do ground school, you do simulators, you do flight training, you'll go solo, you'll do aerobatics, you'll do instrument training, do all that stuff. This is the next phase and evolution of your training. So after that, you get a score. It's called an NSS, a Naval Standard Score. And remember, I'm speaking to the Navy, but if you want to be an Air Force pilot, it's probably pretty similar. You're going to have different wickets that you have to jump through to do well enough on to get the choice of where you go next. So after that, in the Navy, we have multiple choices of places that you would go next. So the next place is, the options you would have then is helicopters. So you go fly helicopters. There's props. So like heavy props, like it was a P3 when I was in, it's a P8 now, and they might still have some P3 slots. There's E2s and C2s. The E2 is an electronic airplane that flies around from the carrier. It goes out and flies kind of high and does some electronic communications and things like that. And then the C2 is the COD, and it's actually going to a V-22 now, which is really amazing. And those, obviously, the V-22s will fly off the carrier. The C-2s flew off the carrier and trap. And those are kind of moving people and cargo around. They used to wear a patch that had mail on it. So they'd fly around all the mail and people and things like that, to and from the carrier and to the different deployments, out to the battle groups. So E2, C2, or jets, right? So these are your options. You have kind of these 4 options that you can do. There was also an E6 option, which was going over to the Air Force and flying in larger jet type aircraft. And a lot of guys did that because they wanted to go fly for the airlines and they knew that they would. So you can do that inside the P8 now too. So those are kind of the options if E6s are still even an option. They're called TACMO. That might still be an option for you. But you do as well as you can in primary, and you have to have above a 50 Naval Standard Score to even have the opportunity to select jets. So jets are the only platform that have a requirement of minimum Naval Standard Score. Now, there's a minimum to just pass out of primary flight training, but the better you do, the more options you have. And it's just the way of life in all of these phases right now, right? So you go do that. Let's say you have great grades at that point. Right? You have great grades. There's an open jet slot. So they also have this needs of the Navy. The Navy can't send all the great people to one platform. So they might say, hey, we have some guys that are really good. We need to send some to helos, some to props, and the rest to jets. They're not going to send all the people that did poorly in primary to helos, or all the people to props, or all the people to E2, C2s. They've got to get a quality spread, they call it. So at that point, if you're lucky enough, you will put in for jets and you select jets. Now, you don't get to go fly the fighter jet yet to the F-18. The next step, or the F-35, the next step is you go fly the T-45. So at the time of this recording, it's a little bit older plane, but we're flying the T-45. So you go to Meridian, Mississippi, or Kingsville, Texas, and you go fly the T-45. So that plane, same thing. Jet, it's a single engine jet. It has, you'll wear G-suit, oxygen mask, all that stuff. Much faster, much higher, is an amazing airplane, a lot of fun. You'll fly that, and you'll go there, and you'll do as well as you can there. So the next step is you have to get through that program, right? So you go fly, go do simulators, ground school, flight training again, and you'll do all that, and you'll get another grade. It'll add to your Naval Standard Score. You'll have another grade coming out of there, and then you'll get to choose the platform and the location that you want to fly. So you graduate from there, you get your wings. So that's when you pin on your wings, which is the best feeling in the entire world. You get that done, and then you get to go to your fleet squadron. Or do you? So the next step after that, let's say I get my wings and I say I want to go to Virginia Beach, to Oceana in Virginia Beach, Virginia, and I want to fly the F-18. And they say, okay, Bill, you got a slot, you got accepted for that, you're going over to Oceana. So I would go out there, and then I go to what's called the FRS. It used to be called the RAG. That's what we called it when I was in. It's the FRS. So the Fleet Readiness Squadron, I think. And you go to the FRS. There, you will go learn how to fly your platform. So there will be instructors there. You'll go through ground school. You go through simulators. You'll go through flight training. And you will, again, learn how now. You learned how to fly the T-45. You got really good at it. And then they're going to take that away, and they're going to give you an F-18. And now you're going to have to go learn how to fly the F-18. When you graduate there, you'll have another grade, and they'll record all your scores. You get graded on everything that you do, and you leave there, and then you go to your fleet squadron, and that'll be your deployment squadron, your fleet squadron for your first sea tour. And that's kind of where I stopped with this young man, because I told him, he said, well, I'd be deployed all the time. What will it look like? And really, that's a bunch of more information. But can you see how you have to jump through all of these wickets? It's not as easy as watching Top Gun and saying, I want to fly F-18s. What do I have to do? I told him to go start flying. So if you're thinking about this, or you're early, maybe you're young watching this video, and you want to be a jet pilot, you want to be Maverick in Top Gun, that's amazing. Start right now. You can go get your private pilot's license at age like 14, 15, 16. You can get your private pilot's license before you can get your driver's license. So go start flying, go get your pilot's license, and the more hours that you can build up, the more you can do before you go to flight school, the better grades you're going to get in flight school. I noticed the people that showed up that had hundreds of hours, they were almost guaranteed a jet slot. Now you have to pay for that out of your pocket. You have to figure out how to do it. You have to put in the time and the effort and get good at it, but it's worth it. Like, if that's what you want to do, if you want to be a jet pilot, start there, and then look at your extracurriculars, look at your grades, look at doing Boy Scouts, get your Eagle Scout, play sports, be really great at what you do. Be the best of the best in everything that you do. And it's the same in business. People that are high performers in their life, in their academics, in their sports, it's going to translate over to business and vice versa. So this is what I recommend for you guys. If you want to become a jet pilot, here's all the hoops you have to jump through. I looked at this young man and I said, so what do you think? And he's like, it seems like a lot. I was like, did you think it was going to be easy? And his response was, I didn't think it would be like that many things, because there's so many off-ramps on this, right? There's no guarantee that you're going to become a jet pilot. Your off-ramp might be like mine, where I ended up flying helicopters. I had jet grades, but there was not a single jet slot the whole week that when I selected. It was right before the end of the fiscal year, and they didn't have any more spots available for jets. And the next week after that, they had tons, because it was a new fiscal year. And so my off-ramp was, here's your helicopter. And you know what? There's a huge lesson to be learned in here. At that time, I was really frustrated, upset, angry, even for like a couple months when I was at the helicopter school. I just felt devastated, and I did not show up as my best self. And I had a mentor and an instructor there who told me, he's like, Bill, you can keep showing up like this and just be frustrated and angry and keep talking about how you didn't get jets and how the Navy screwed you over. Or you can show up here and give everything that you got, do really well, get great grades, and fly the helicopter that you want in the location that you want. And it's up to you. You can keep doing what you're doing. You're probably not going to do as well as you could possibly do. And you're not going to get the choice that you want. You might end up flying MH-53s in Corpus Christi, Texas. And that's not something you want to do, I don't think. And I knew I wanted to be, if I got to helicopters, I wanted to be in San Diego, where I was born and grew up half my life in Southern California. I wanted to be there. And I wanted to get my choice of the best helicopter, doing the best mission, and the thing that I wanted to do. So I changed my mindset. I fixed myself, and I stepped into that, and I crushed it. I was the number one person coming out of my squadron, my helicopter squadron at primary or advanced helicopter training, and I got to choose the location and the airframe, and there was only one slot in San Diego flying MH-60 Sierras when I selected, and I got it. So I would highly encourage you to think about all the different lessons that could be learned in here for business and life, because I learned them all along the way in the military, and I think it's a great route for you. His mom was sitting there with me, and I told them a few stories about some of the people and friends that were in my logbook that I lost over the past few years. And but I didn't want them to only have half the story, all the amazing stuff. I wanted them to see it all and decide if it was right for them as a family. And I really hope that young man goes on to push that, to try it, to attempt it. And I think it's going to be an amazing journey. It was a lot of fun for me, and I look back and I wish I could go back 20 years and start it all again. So if you're thinking about flying, if you're thinking about the Navy fighter pilot, and that's what you want to do, here's your steps to do it. And hopefully I didn't leave anything out. There's a lot more that I could talk about for days and days and hours, but I think this is really exciting and a cool video for me to put together. So if you guys like this, let me know. Subscribe to the channel. We talk about real estate mostly, but I will talk about more flying and fun stuff, and our event for kids coming up for real estate and all those kind of things. I can't wait for, and I hope that you join us there. Another event that we have is called Flip Hacking Live. We'll put the description and the link in the comments. I'll see you guys on the next video.